The story begins with a few kung fu warriors soaring through the air like birds. Among them is a young boy named Li, who is enjoying flying close to his beloved Lisa. However, this was all just a dream. In reality, Li could only imagine himself as a great kung fu master because, in truth, he was the weakest among his entire clan. Suddenly, he realized that it was time for the entire clan's lunch, and he was the one responsible for preparing it. 10 years ago, Qingyang School, a prestigious kung fu academy, had granted him admission. Li had tried his best to become better at martial arts, but compared to other students, he remained weak. His hands were more skilled in cooking than fighting. Quickly, he began preparing food for his master and fellow students. As soon as the food was ready, he called out to everyone. The moment the food reached the table, his fellow students pounced on it playfully and began fighting among themselves. Their immense strength was evident when one of them stopped the food midair. A little later, Ru arrived and swiftly attacked, knocking Li to the ground. But as soon as the master entered, everyone immediately sat down in discipline and silence. Since they had wasted the food that Li had prepared, the students had to settle for plain rice. Suddenly, the master asked Li about his training. Excitedly, Li started explaining that he was about to clear the first level, upon which his fellow students mockingly praised him. However, the master was unconvinced and decided to test Li's energy. Despite years of training, Li began struggling within moments. Seeing this, Lisa, the master's daughter, secretly supported him from behind. But as the master gradually increased his power, the other students discreetly transferred their energy to Li so he could withstand the test. The master, however, saw through their trick and, with a single move, as a result, Li was deemed unsuccessful in clearing level 1. Later, it is revealed that Lisa had been secretly helping Li with his training. They had to hide this because, at Qingyang School, learning from another master was strictly prohibited. Breaking this rule could either lead to expulsion or force them into 10 years of meditation facing a wall. This time, Li was on the verge of completing his level 1 training when suddenly, a glow emerged from the locket around his neck, and he collapsed. Lisa sensed that two forces were clashing inside Li's body, but they chose not to dwell on it and continued forward. Li then shared that 10 years ago, his parents were killed by the Demon King, and their entire village was destroyed in the attack. Lisa thought that if she took him back to that place, it might help him find closure. Leaving the school without permission was forbidden, but after some thought, they decided to sneak out. Soon, they reached the deserted village, where memories of that fateful day flooded Li's mind. Li and his friend Jinyu had been returning home when they saw their entire village engulfed in lightning and a bright glow. Suddenly, a masked man appeared, chasing the village's strongest martial artist. Trapped in the middle of this battle, Li and Jinyu lost consciousness. When Li regained consciousness, the battle was still ongoing. The masked man was losing, but then he noticed Li standing nearby. Seizing the opportunity, he attacked Li and secretly placed a venomous insect inside his clothes. Just as the strongest warrior of the village rushed to save Li, he grabbed him, only for the insect to bite the warrior instead. However, the poison wasn't strong enough to kill the master. Instead, he overpowered the masked man and drove him away. After a loud explosion, Li and Jinyu returned to the village, only to find that everyone had been killed. Overcome with grief, they wept. A little while later, Li's master arrived with his daughter, Lisa, and took him away. Meanwhile, at Qingyang School, all 7 masters gathered for a meeting. Every 60 years, they held a competition among their students to determine which master had trained the strongest warriors. The winner would be declared the Grand Commander. Beneath Qingyang School, an old enemy was growing in strength, and one of the masters suspected that the demon clan was increasing in numbers. This tournament, therefore, served as both a competition and a way to train students to fight against their enemies. Later, we see some male students secretly watching the training of the Shazu clan, which primarily consisted of female fighters. These girls were exceptionally skilled, but the boys were more interested in admiring them than in analyzing their techniques. Among them, one girl stood out, Suki, the strongest of them all. As soon as she appeared, the boys scrambled to get a better look, stacking on top of one another. In all the commotion, Li accidentally fell from his hiding spot, exposing himself. The girls quickly surrounded him and took him captive. The other boys managed to escape, but poor Li was left behind. Suki decided to punish him. She tied him up and dangled him from a cliff before finally dropping him from several feet above. As further punishment, she placed numerous tiny, itchy insects all over his body. These insects were so small and persistent as possible. Li's friends tried their best to get rid of the insects, but there were too many. Desperate, they thought of trapping Li in a hot pot to suffocate the insects. Luckily, Lisa arrived just in time and saved him. She pulled him out of the pot and tended to his wounds. Li already had feelings for Lisa, but after seeing her care for him, his love for her grew even stronger. He made up his mind. He would train harder, become stronger, and one day confess his love. The next morning, Li went to a lake to seek advice from a wise dragon. He even brought food as an offering. His main question? How to talk to Lisa. With only a few days left until the tournament, Lisa secretly stole some hidden scrolls from her father and gave them to Li, helping him gain power faster. He immediately began training, determined to get stronger. But just as he was about to clear the first level of training, two different voices echoed in his mind. His necklace began to glow and burned his skin painfully. This necklace went to him 10 years ago, when the venomous insect bit the old master. The master had transferred all his knowledge to Li before his death. At the same time, he had warned Li to get rid of the pendant as soon as possible, but Li had never done so. Now he started suspecting that the locket was holding him back from completing his training. Determined, he decided to throw it away. Climbing to the highest cliff, he prepared to toss it. But just then, a monkey appeared, trying to snatch the locket. Li immediately ran, but the monkey kept throwing stones at him. In the chase, Li ended up in the river, struggling to stay afloat. The stones weighed him down, pulling him deeper. Below, he saw a mysterious glowing light. But before he could reach it, one of the stones suddenly changed direction, pulling him back to the surface. The monkey, still determined to steal the locket, bit Li's hand. In pain, Li shoved it away. As soon as Li's blood touched the locket, a staff emerged from the depths of the lake. The sky darkened, and the staff began to float in the air. The locket around Li's neck suddenly grew intensely hot and fused with the staff, as if they had always been one. The seven masters watched in astonishment, realizing that the blood-sucking pearl, a dangerous weapon. This weapon originally belonged to the Demon King, who had been searching for it after it was taken from him and locked away. Now that the staff had reappeared, the Demon King might attempt to retrieve it from the world above. The staff then moved toward Li, and he was about to leave with it when a masked woman appeared, trying to steal it. Li wasn't skilled at fighting, but he managed to hold his ground until Suki and Lisa arrived and drove the stranger away. Later, as Li was explaining everything to Lisa, he noticed that the bite mark on his hand had disappeared. That night, the masked woman returned to Li's room to steal the staff. However, trouble began when the staff, now seemingly bonded with Li, refused to leave him. The woman decided to kill Li to take the staff, but the staff defended him, knocking her unconscious. The next morning, Li was startled to find the woman lying in his bed. He was confused, but she demanded the staff, saying, "You did everything to me last night, at least give me the staff." Li was tempted to give it to her, but every time he tried, the staff returned to him. Frustrated, the woman left without a word. Soon, it became clear that the staff could communicate with Li. The following day, the students of the other masters arrived at school, and the tournament was about to begin. Among them was an old friend of Li's, who had become a powerful warrior under the training of a different master. When he learned that Li had yet to clear the first level of training even after 10 years, he mocked him, saying, "Your master is useless. He hasn't taught you properly." Li was busy working when he saw Yao in a flower field. Li shouted at him not to pick the flowers, as it would hurt them. Just then, a group of mounted warriors arrived. The woman pushed Li to the ground and told him to stay quiet. When he didn't, she kissed him to make him stop. After they left, Yao began searching around, looking for the staff. Li reassured him that he had left it at home, but Yao slapped him and left in frustration. However, the staff once again appeared on its own to protect Li. Later, when Li returned to school, he saw Lisa talking intimately with another student. Lisa had no idea that Li had feelings for her and unknowingly kept talking about her boyfriend, saying things like, "My boyfriend does this and that." Li listened quietly, smiling on the outside, but feeling heartbroken inside. In an attempt to release his frustration, he went to a nearby cliff and screamed loudly. His friends overheard him, and embarrassed, as he fled, some people followed him, and he eventually met Yao again. They both hid in a cave where Li questioned her. She explained that she was hiding from her master because she had broken a rule. She often tried to take the staff but couldn't. In her frustration, she had drawn her weapon, but before she could attack, the staff sensed the danger and knocked her out. Li was still confused, as he had treated her kindly, but soon he left to get food. When Li returned, he saw the girl cooking something. At first, he thought she might have cooked his monkey, but it turned out to be a burnt rabbit. Li then cooked another rabbit on the staff. The girl tasted it and said it reminded her of the meat her mother used to cook. Li, not being very crafty, felt sympathy for her. She then shared how she wished to live in a place where no one could find her after her mother's death. Finally, the day of the tournament arrived. Each master selected 7 students, and they would fight to determine who was number 1. A total of 49 students participated, and the decision was made that whoever caught the number 1 ball would immediately advance to the next stage. When the balls were thrown into the air, all the students flew to catch them. One master noticed that Li was the only student who couldn't fly. The others laughed at him since he hadn't progressed much in Kung Fu. Before Li could grab the ball on the ground, Zuki secretly switched it, giving Li the number 1 ball. Li was confused and thanked Zuki, but she told him that she wasn't interested in advancing without a fight. She had done this for herself, not for him. The tournament began, and 31 students were eliminated in the first round. That evening, Zuki was still training, but she looked very exhausted and even sick. Her master told her to rest, but Zuki insisted that she wanted to win at any cost because her master was growing weaker. However, she didn't realize that the other masters were beginning to see her struggle. In the second round, Zuki defeated her opponent without even drawing her sword, which made the other students nervous. When it was Li's turn, his friends came to watch. They underestimated him, but Li easily defeated his opponents. During the fight, some dust got in his eyes, and the staff moved on its own. Li then explained that he had qualified. Everyone was shocked. In the next round, he was up against his childhood friend, Jingyu. Jingyu assumed that Li was much weaker, so he gave Li the chance to attack first. But the staff struck with incredible force, defeating Jingyu. Jingyu, angry, accused Li of hiding his true strength and deceiving him. He was so furious that he broke off their friendship. That night, Li's monkey took him to the area where the female warriors were. Zuki was lying unconscious by the river, looking very weak. Li picked her up and noticed how frail she had become. He advised her to quit the tournament, but Zuki was determined to win no matter what. The next day, all the students and their masters gathered for the final match between Li and Zuki. However, Li no longer had his staff, as he had thrown it away after Jingyu's outburst. Without it, Li was badly injured at the beginning of the fight. When Zuki told him to surrender, he refused. He was prepared to fight until his last breath because everyone always thought he was useless. To end the tournament, Zuki drew her sword, but suddenly the staff returned because it couldn't bear to see its owner die. As soon as Li touched the staff, his wounds healed. The staff then launched a series of powerful attacks on Zuki, but seeing blood on her face, Li stopped the fight. In the midst of their battle, the D-Man clan arrived, and many students rushed into the jungle after hearing the screams of a child. It turned out that the situation was a trap set by Demon King. A puppet master controlled the students and forced them to fight each other. Meanwhile, several demons emerged from underground, killing the students to clear the path for Demon King's arrival. The seven masters recognized Li's staff and realized it was the infamous blood-sucking pearl, a powerful weapon that Demon King had once used. They seized the staff and imprisoned Li, suspecting that he had learned black magic. However, Li's master defended him, saying that Li had not left the school for 10 years. Soon, a student rushed in, informing them about the incident in the forest. The masters realized that Li hadn't done anything wrong since he was still imprisoned, but they decided to keep him and the staff locked up while investigating further. At this point, Yao came to free Li. Li was hesitant to escape, fearing that if he ran, he would be blamed for everything. However, Yao knocked him unconscious and took him away. The staff appeared to help Li, and Yao explained that she wasn't going to harm his master, but was only trying to save him. Despite her intentions, Yao took Li to her father, the demon master, who attacked Li on sight. Yao intervened and tried to stop her father from killing Li, asking him to train Li instead. While trying to protect Li, Yao couldn't last long against her father's power. Li, alone and relying on his staff, continued to fight until the seven masters arrived. The demon master was extremely powerful, and the seven masters combined their powers to attack him. Li was shocked to see their electric attack, which had once destroyed his village. He realized that one of these masters was responsible for the destruction of his village, but he didn't have time to confront them. Seeing his masters in trouble, he decided to help. During the fight, Li's body began to absorb both positive and negative energy, which allowed him to reach a new level of power. Demon Master quickly realized that Li wasn't an ordinary person. He possessed 3 different types of kung fu. He warned that Li's power could destroy the school, and then suddenly disappeared. The masters were alarmed and considered the possibility of killing Li to prevent disaster. Li felt betrayed as he saw his masters attacking him. Now, more powerful than ever, he could easily destroy them all. However, just as he was about to make a fatal move on his masters, Liza intervened to protect her father and was injured in the process. Liza, badly wounded, reached out to Li, asking him to recognize her. Li came to his senses but was devastated to see that Liza had passed away. At that moment, Zuki's master ordered her to kill Li. Zuki hesitated but couldn't disobey her master. Her first attack was stopped by one of Li's friends, and the second was blocked by his master, who urged Li to leave and never return. As Zuki prepared to attack again, she remembered how Li had saved her life. To repay him, she allowed Li to escape. Li, carrying the injured Yao, promised to take her to a place where no one could find her. Make sure to subscribe to Film Reveal Decoder and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. If you have a favorite movie you'd like us to explain next, type "next" in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.